From Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, Treebeard, Gracious Host is a 0/5 for 2 of any color, 1 green, and 1 white mana. They have Trample and Ward 2. When Treebeard enters the battlefield, you create 2 food tokens. Whenever you gain life, put that many +1/+1 counters onto a target halfling or treefolk. The deck we built for Treebeard has 2 main strategies. Our primary is that of a life gain deck. We have a lot of ways to gain us life, through things such as getting creatures into play, or through just tapping to gain 2 life. And each point of life that we gain will convert into a +1/+1 counter while Treebeard is in play, and it's going to make our creatures larger as we pad our life total. Now, this is a very passive strategy, but we're very easily able to pivot into a combat-centric strategy once our creatures are big enough to trample our opponents. The secondary strategy is somewhat of a typal strategy, utilizing some value halfling and treefolk cards to make the most of Treebeard giving out those +1/+1 counters. Of course, Treebeard themselves is more than capable of being the target of those +1/+1 counters, but we do have other cards in the deck who can pack quite a punch. Let's begin with the life gain strategy for now. Starting out, we have Abzan Battle Priest, who gives lifelink to any creature that has a +1/+1 counter on it. This means that should Treebeard be out and our board of lifelinking creatures attacks, we're going to gain a tremendous amount of life, and then put a ton of +1/+1 counters onto our creatures. We are on Archivist of Ogma, who is coincidentally a halfling, and it has tremendous upside as it's going to give us card draw and life gain upon our opponents' tutor effects. And this plays into both our strategies, making them perhaps the best halfling in the deck. Arwen, the Mortal Queen, comes in with an indestructible counter on her, but we can pay 1 and remove that indestructible counter to give another creature +1/+1 counter, lifelink counter, and indestructible into the end of turn, as well as putting a +1/+1 counter and a lifelink counter on Arwen herself. This can be tremendously useful, as this is going to give the creature we've built up some spot protection from any naughty removal. Blossoming Bogbeast has a unique synergy with this deck, and acts as almost an overrun ability. Whenever it attacks, we start off by gaining 2 life. Then, we give each creature we control Trample and +X/+X until the end of turn, where X is the amount of life we've gained. Considering how much life we are capable of gaining in a single turn, this can win us the game on the spot. Our Soul Sister package is here. We have Essence Warden, Soul Warden, and Soul's Attendant. These each will give us 1 life whenever a creature enters the battlefield, which then converts to +1/+1 counters for our commander, and can help buffer our life total even further. As a Root Channeler is another treefolk, and can tap to gain us 2 life. It also has the static ability where creature spells we cast cost X less to cast, where X is the amount of life we've gained this turn. Combined with its tap ability, we are essentially ramping for a total of 2 mana per creature. Heliod's Sun Crown gives us a +1/+1 counter onto a target creature or enchantment we control whenever we gain life, which also has a similar ability to our commander, but it also has a lot less typal restrictions. We can also pay 2 mana to give a target creature lifelink, which is going to be very helpful, and it plays into a win con that we're going to discuss later on. Orchard Warden gives us life equal to the toughness of a treefolk that has entered play under our control, which generally will be a pretty decent chunk of life. Treefolk historically have some chunky booties, so this will make for a substantial life gain. Prize Pig can get pretty crazy for the life gain, as every time we gain life we put a prize counter on it, and then for every 3 prize counters that we get, we can untap the pig and then it taps for any color. The Gaffer can turn those 3 life gained, either through food usage or through our various sources of life gain, into card draw. This also will count opponents' turns, so we can draw a few cards per cycle pretty easily. Momentous Fall is a good out for our creatures should one be on the way to the bin. We sacrifice it, we draw cards equal to its power, and then gain life equal to its toughness. Both are good results and can definitely help us out in a pinch. Aetherflux Reservoir is both a life gain engine and a potential win con. If we've gained enough life, we can simply turn on the Death Star and blast each opponent out of the game. Lembas is included as a bit of flavor, as it is technically food with upside. It also recycles itself whenever it goes to the graveyard, meaning we will always be able to get it back into the deck. Party Tree is in here for a fun include that does literally everything we want this deck to do. Big creatures, ramp, life gain, card draw, +1/+1 counters. Well of Lost Dreams turns our life gain into card draw and can be extremely helpful should we be low on resources after a turn of overextension. Authority of the Consoles is another Soul Sisters type card, but it comes with a bit of stack spice in it, enforcing opponent creatures to enter the battlefield tapped. Next, let's discuss some of the cards that we'll be putting those +1/+1 counters onto. Banquet Guests has Trample, and it enters play with counters on it equal to twice the amount that we pay for X. We can also sacrifice a food to give it indestructible until the end of turn. Combined with its affinity for food, this makes it likely to be a tremendous beatstick with very little investment on our end. Fangorn Tree Shepherd gives our treefolk vigilance and gives us mana and a mana saving ability. While it is a little expensive to cast at 7 mana, we do look to ramp pretty explosively in this deck, and we are going to be cheating some costs with some fun tech we'll discuss later that makes it likely we won't be paying for this card at all. Farmer Cotton creates a squad of halflings and a feast of food, depending on what you invest into his X cost, making it possible to have quite a lot of food to gain us quite a lot of life. Frodo Baggins, while not entirely synergizing with the deck, is a halfling that has a lore-style ability once it becomes our ring bearer, and considering the number of legendary creatures in this deck, that should be very easy to start getting off. Sam, Loyal Attendant, creates us food tokens each turn, and makes our food's ability cost 1 mana less, making it possible to use 2 food token abilities for the price of 1, gaining us 6 life. Scurry Oak is part of a pretty good combo with this deck. Our commander puts +1/+1 counters onto creatures whenever we gain life. We can then use Scurry Oak and a Soul Sister life gain creature to gain us 1 life upon a creature entering the battlefield. We put that +1/+1 counter onto the Oak. The Oak's ability will trigger and create us a squirrel, which will then trigger the Soul Sister, gaining us a life, which will then trigger our commander, putting a +1/+1 counter onto the Oak, and then we continue this for as long as we wish or until we have a tremendous squirrel army and a giant Scurry Oak. Do note that Scurry Oak is a May ability, so you do have control over stopping this combo. We also have Assemble the Entmoon, which can be sacrificed on a life gain happy turn to create 3 tapped XX Treefolk tokens, where X is the amount of life we've gained this turn. Those tokens also get reach. Especially if we've gone a little bit nutty with the aforementioned Scurry Oak combo, we can sacrifice this to create us 3 tokens, each of which will be capable of one-shotting an opponent. Now, some fun tech I've included in this deck for flavor reasons entirely is Last March of the Ents. This 8-drop is not able to be countered, and it lets you draw cards equal to the greatest toughness among your creatures. Then, you can drop any number of creatures into play without paying their mana costs. This can help save us a ton of mana in the process and drop all of our expensive creatures into play at once. The Battle of Bywater is in here too as a bit of an on-theme board wipe. If you play this early on enough, it'll destroy all creatures that are larger than our board and then give us a ton of food tokens. Our commander's base power is 0, a lot of our halflings are pretty small, and so this won't impact our board unless they've gotten a few counters onto them. Still, it does give us the most food token production on a sorcery, so it is a must-have. Field-tested Frying Pan gives us a food token, a halfling token, and a pretty useful buff that'll play nicely into our strategy. It gives a buff based on the amount of life we've gained this turn. Depending on how crazy we've gone with our food tokens or our other life gain sources, this can be quite the power buff. A bit of unique tech in this build that is only included because of Treebeard and our other treefolk cards is Assault Formation. As we've mentioned before, treefolk are known for their high toughness but low power, and their famous commander of Duran the Siege Tower actually has an ability that globally makes combat damage be calculated using toughness instead of power, making that typo power toughness differential relevant. Treebeard's base stat line is 0-5, meaning with this in play, they'd actually be dealing 5 base damage instead of 0. And as we put +1/+1 counters onto Treebeard, their toughness will always be 5 points higher, making it a lot more useful to use the toughness in combat calculations. We also included Bill the Pony to offer us a similar ability, and because the trample and it being our commander, we even include the potential to overrun Treebeard's damage to win off commander damage in this way. We also have Walking Ballista, who combos very nicely with the aforementioned Heliod. Heliod can give this creature lifelink, which gains us a life whenever it deals any kind of damage. As long as the Ballista comes into play with at least 2 +1/+1 counters, we can win the game on the spot. We remove a counter to ping an opponent. The lifelink will gain us 1 life, which will let Heliod put a +1/+1 counter back onto the Ballista, letting us repeat the process until the table is dead. This is of course borrowed from the more competitive end of the format, and you are welcome to use it if you so wish. But for now, this is going to wrap up our look at Treebeard Gracious Host. Other cards you would recommend for this deck? Feel free to suggest them down below. If you enjoyed this video, likes and shares are of course graciously appreciated. Over 95% of the viewers of my videos lately aren't subscribed to the channel, so feel free to subscribe to never miss a new video. And as always, I'll see you all next time.